Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha Holmberg, and welcome to my presentation, The Evolution of Human Sexuality Within Popular Culture and Psychology. As an introduction, the goal of my paper was to analyze perspectives on sex throughout cultures and their histories as a way to determine their influence on the evolution of sexual psychology. So it seems that human sexuality views have gone through this ebb and flow from liberal to conservative across time, and sexual research has long been a contentious and controversial field of research. To begin a historical review, we'll start with ancient Greece. The sexual openness experienced in this era has emerged ancient Greece as a time of its own zeitgeist. So it's seen as this very liberal and open era of time. Marriage for upper class men were often motivated by financial and political gain. So when it came to love and lust, they often sought their pleasure within themselves or with other men. Homosexuality, masturbation, and pleasure played important roles in their lives outside of their marriage. The most common type of love relationship during this time was a pederastic one, which was based on an exchange of power. The older man would mentor a younger boy, advising him on everything from politics and the military to sexual activities. However, for women in ancient Greece, sexuality was a matter of power, and they were often married off for social and financial gain with little regard for love or personal preference. So, with ancient Greece, sexuality was mostly free, except in regards to women who experienced sexual oppression from what seemed to be the patriarchal system of that time. Moving to antiquated India, they had a unique approach towards sexuality that shaped their cultural and religious beliefs. It was seen as an inherent part of being human, and experiencing pleasure sexually was viewed as a path to enlightenment. One of the best examples of sex represented in educational literature is the Kama Sutra. It's an all-encompassing manual that details everything from sexual positions to foreplay methods and advice for maximizing sensual enjoyment. However, unfortunately, ancient India's sexual openness changed drastically under Muslim rule. They moved women and forced them to wear veils or purdas, and this severely limited their sexual expression and freedom. Another hit to sexual liberty came in the form of British colonization, where the British viewed sexual liberalism with severe disdain, and the British government criminalized homosexuality and non-heterosexual behaviors. And both of these put pressure on Indian culture and severely altered the way that Indian people thought and felt about sexuality. Views of sexuality across indigenous cultures. So native cultures worldwide, including those in North America, also have always placed high values on investigating questions about sex and gender. Prior to European colonization, Native American societies generally acknowledged and accepted members of their community who identified as having two or more genders, what is known as being two-spirited. However, colonization had a huge impact on Indigenous peoples, and members of their community frequently found their gendered and sexual identities to be marginalized as a result of colonialism. Moving on to the researchers affluent in this time, Henry Havelock Ellis. He made major contributions in the field in regard to his essay writings, medicine, and advancing sex education and women's rights. His first book, Sexual Inversion, caused quite a stir because of his empathetic portrayal of homosexuality, and most of his book was comprised of first-person case studies written by prominent openly gay professionals at the time. His work on sexuality was groundbreaking, and modern views owe a lot to his work, and because he challenged Victorian views, advocating for sex education and promoting women's rights. Sigmund Freud. So Sigmund Freud was the first scientist to establish a connection between sexual activity and mature human psychology. He proposed the theory that all humans are sexual beings who go through 5 distinct phases of sexual development. The influence of Freud on contemporary sexual research is substantial. Undoubtedly, his work has influenced many different areas of study, making him a leading thinker and theorist of the 20th century, and a zeitgeist to some in his own right. His writings stress the need to treat the whole person, including the patient's internal state of mind and relationships with others when dealing with sexual dysfunction. Alfred Kinsey. So he's often regarded as the father of human sexuality research, and he originally studied entomology. However, when he was teaching a class on marital dynamics, he became interested in human sexuality because he started research for a field that he felt that there was little research there, and he wanted to fill that gap. His studies often relied on surveys, and for its time, this was groundbreaking because these survey techniques led to people feeling uncomfortable talking about taboos about sex. But overall, his contributions did much to debunk the taboos surrounding sex and open the door to studies of human sexuality. So, sexual research today. There's been significant progress in our understanding of a sexual attraction, orientation, behavior, health, and sexual dysfunction, and this all can be attributed to the scientific study of human sexuality. As an example, we can look at the research of sexual orientation. We now know that genetic, hormonal, and environmental factors may influence some individuals' sexual orientation, and so this is a combination of factors, and there's not research that shows that this is related to it being a choice. So this has promoted increased tolerance and comprehension of people who don't identify as heterosexual. However, research in sexuality is still in its infancy, but it has a potential to shed light on pressing societal questions about sexual health and well-being. So to conclude, the history of sexuality in ancient cultures is deep and complex, and it sheds light on the development of attitudes towards sexuality over the course of human history. The manner in which sexuality has been viewed and studied throughout history has been influenced by cultural, religious, and societal attitudes, which has contributed to the fact that it is a contentious area of research. In pre-modern cultures, sexuality was frequently seen positively, whereas in modern Western cultures, sexuality is largely seen negatively. And after the spread of Catholicism and Christianity, traditional perspectives on sexuality were repressed in favor of Western concepts of morality and sexual norms. It is heartening to see that research within this field is growing today. However, the pace of this advancement is slow, and there are still regions of the world where people are prosecuted and there are lots of violence based on sexual issues. It is possible that the historical, cultural, and societal attitudes towards sexuality are to blame for the fact that sexual psychology has not received the same amount of attention as other branches in this discipline. However, to conclude, investigating the views of sexuality throughout ancient cultures sheds light on the importance and the impact of cultural, religious, and societal norms on the field of the study. It's necessary to acknowledge the significance of cultural context in gaining an understanding of human sexuality. Thank you for listening, and these are just some of my references that I have. Thank you.